When they made the Bradley Beal trade, you kissed a traditional point guard goodbye.
Yeah.
You said, we don't have money to get a traditional point guard. Chris Paul is gone. We're moving on from that era of having a traditional floor general set up the whole offense. We're going with a multiple ball handler attack. They told us this from media day, from the day that Bradley Beal got traded for. Like, this was always going to happen. I don't know why people are so surprised or taken aback by that.
Matt Ishbia did say, ask James Jones. He'll tell you more about the point guard. Well, of course, James Jones was asked, does he believe the team needs a point guard, or does he believe that the big three could be the lead offensive initiators? And here's what he said.
I think the team could benefit from having a point guard. I believe the team could benefit from having backup forwards, backup centers. I still always go back to your best players on the floor. That's a narrative we'll hear a lot. A point guard, point guard, point guard. Point guard, point guard, point guard. And I'm saying, sure, that's great. Who do you want? Like, who do you want? Like, who's available, given the way we're built? Who can fit with this group? Whose game seamlessly fits with this group? And when you put that player on the floor and you take the ball out of someone's hands, whose hands are you taking it out of? And who are you putting in that position? And so it's more than just a position, like a point guard or small forward. It's the actual player that you can get or you do have. And so if we had the point guard that would be the best fit for this group, we'd find them if available. So I don't think there's anything wrong. I don't run away from saying we could benefit from having a point guard. I just don't think that was the answer to a lot of our problems.
Sassy James Jones.
I like to imagine he was actually trying to get groupthink, asking.
Like, who do you guys like?
But for real, like, tell me.
I'm really asking y'all. Can y'all tell me?
But really what I think that was he's like, you want to know what that conversation with Frank went like? I said, what point guard do you want me to get? There ain't any right now.
That was gratifying to hear, because that's what I've been asking people the whole time when they come back with, we need a point guard. Who are you going to get that is big enough so that your starting lineup is not undersized, that can play on or off the ball, that doesn't need a lot of shots or touches, that you can afford to either sign for a vet minimum or trade for with limited assets? Like, who checks all of those boxes at the same time? There is no such player that does that, at least not in a traditional point guard sense.
Correct. Okay, but we're getting too far ahead of ourselves here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's his job to figure out who that person is.
It is.
Our job is to decipher and decide amongst ourselves, should they go looking for that guy or not?
But that's the thing.
That's what I want to have a conversation about. Should they go looking for a guy like that? Should they be looking, whether that's the draft, whether that's guys who are already established, and and of course, if you go the draft route, there's a good possibility that won't help you immediately.
Right.
But moving forward, or even as you were making the decisions last offseason, was that even a thought? Right?
Well,
or did you have the expectation that these three guys would be good enough as facilitators to not need it?
They did. When they made the Bradley Beal trade, you kissed a traditional point guard goodbye.
Yeah.
You said, we don't have money to get a traditional point guard. Chris Paul is gone. We're moving on from that era of having a traditional floor general set up the whole offense. We're going with a multiple ball handler attack. They told us this from media day, from the day that Bradley Beal got traded for. Like, this was always going to happen. I don't know why people are so surprised or taken aback by that. Yes, they needed a backup point guard. Yes, when Jordan Goodwin didn't pan out, they needed to bring someone in who could handle those minutes, and they didn't do that, and that is the failure for me. But, like, I can't sit here and act like I'm surprised. When you made the Bradley Beal trade, you were banking on Book and Beal being able to have enough playmaking there, enough offensive initiation to make up for that lack of a traditional point guard. And I will point out, you look around the league, hardly anybody has that fucking player anymore.
No, they don't.
Nobody has a traditional point guard. They have point guards, guys that defend smaller guards, or they have guys that initiate offense like Nikola Jokic or Luka Doncic. Those guys aren't point guards. They're point guard in their functionality, in their playmaking, in their offensive initiation. But we're not going to bring in some 6'1" point guard and make the small starting lineup even smaller than it already is.
So you're 100% right, G. I mean, true point guards and true centers are out of the NBA.
Yeah.
You just don't find them. There's maybe a handful at each position, and that may be reaching. Here's where I think it went wrong. I think that initially coming into the season, the idea was the guy you brought up, Jordan Goodwin. They thought Jordan Goodwin would be able to handle that. They miscalculated. They realized real quick Jordan Goodwin's not that guy. But you could see the way that they were playing their rotations early, that they intended to have some type of point guard for 8 to 10 minutes a game off the bench, which is what they were doing with Jordan. I think they sat there and said, hey, you know what? Jordan didn't work, but we could probably find this guy at the deadline. That didn't work. And then they said, oh, it's not over yet. We still got the buyout market. Guys like DeLon Wright and stuff are out there. Maybe we can get that. That didn't work. So they struck out 3 times. It's very reminiscent of the finals year where we knew we needed that backup big and we just didn't get it. And then with next year, we got JaVale McGee, right? I feel the same thing happening. I feel like they saw the situation. They had a calculated plan, all struck out on all 3. And now this season, I think it's going to be a priority to get a point guard. Not a starting point guard, but just somebody that I think can come off the bench and do a little bit. And like Gerald said, there's not many in the NBA, so don't get too crazy. There ain't too many real point guards out there. They're mostly combo guards that could play a little point.
Yeah, there was an interesting article by Rob Mahoney on The Ringer. I don't know if you guys read it, but it was called The Field Guide to the Modern NBA Point Guards. And there was like 5 different buckets that guys fell into. And the whole point was the idea of point guard isn't there anymore. It's so different. It depends on the offense and what is each of these guys setting up. Who is it? Like there's no traditional mindset of what we think a point guard was from the 90s, the John Stocktons, the Mark Prices. Like that does not exist anymore in the NBA in that way.